Join us for this week's On the Conservation Front as we dive deeper into critical water issues facing the state. Florida Sportsman has been leading the fight on the conservation front lines for over 50 years.
We move now to Florida, where they're in for a messy holiday, sad to say. A state of emergency has been declared there because of a green, slimy, smelly, and flat-out dangerous invasion.
What should be a very busy beach weekend, instead, a toxic algae invasion is making the water not only unswimmable there, it smells so bad people don't want to go anywhere near it.
We can stop toxic Lake Okeechobee discharges to both coasts right now through a change in lake operations and legislation in Congress. Join Alex Gillen of Bull Sugar and Congressman Brian Mast as we discuss how and why we must do this. Sugar has essentially rigged the drainage system. They get top priority. They get perfect drainage when the weather's dry, and they get perfect irrigation during droughts. How do we fix this?
Operations, how we manage, when we move water around, how we pull the levers. That's what operations is, and that's how we fix it. We have to change the underlying law, the 1948 Central and Southern Florida Project at the federal level in Congress. That's how we change it. We need to update the priorities from 1948. The way we can also do it right now today for free is by LOSM, the Lake Okeechobee System Operating Manual, which being debated right now to figure out how the Corps manages and operates the lake. We need to lower the lake level so that we do not continue to have these discharges.
Everglades National Park and Florida Bay is starving from that water. Before the drainage era, the park and the bay received 20 times more water than it does today. And just recently, Florida Bay had a terrible hypersalinity year and lost 60,000 acres of seagrass due to that lack of water. How can we make this right?
Send water south. I mean, the fascinating thing about this problem is one thing solves three world-class estuaries, and that is stop discharging east and west to the St. Lucie and Caloosahatchee and send it back to Florida Bay. How do you do that? Well, you use the capacity in the system. The capacity of the system is fixed, and we're trying to increase it through the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan. But we do have capacity that we don't use in the system because we stack water in the lake in case the EAA needs it for irrigation. So rather than do that, we need to send that water south in the dry season and west in the dry season to the maximum extent beneficial to those ecosystems. So we lower the lake, thereby increasing the capacity in Lake Okeechobee, reducing the likelihood of discharges, and everybody wins. In 2008, the Army Corps revisited the way they manage Lake Okeechobee in their regulation schedule called LORS, out of concern of breach of the Herbert Hoover Dike. So the whole point was health and human safety. Today, we know that toxic algae is bad for our health. When the Corps promulgates a new regulation schedule, should this be about health and safety with respect to algae?
When I argue with the Corps of Engineers about, listen, human health, human safety, it needs to be made a priority, they'll argue back to me and say, no, listen, human health and human safety is already written in there because we're worried about the health and safety of people south of Lake Okeechobee and the dike breaching. Worthy concern, but that is not the same thing as worrying about the health and safety of people that have to take toxic discharges out of Lake Okeechobee on the east and west coast. That's something that needs to change. That's why we're saying we need human health and human safety for the coasts written into law as it relates to toxic algal blooms, not just the dike breaching. If human health and human safety is good enough for everybody else, it should be good enough for us that are worried about things like Alzheimer's. What happens if you get in the water with a strawberry on your knee, or one of your children get in the water with a cut? Are they going to get some flesh-eating bacteria? What's going to happen there? That has to be good enough for us as well.
So the discharge problem here in your district is nothing new. We've seen it over and over again. We've seen toxic algae discharges, polluted water, harming the economy, harming the health and human safety of our community, and harming the environment. And we do this because we stack 2 years of water on Lake Okeechobee in case the Everglades agricultural area needs irrigation in the dry season. By doing that, we're choosing to put a business ahead of our community's health, the environment, and our businesses here. Is that good policy?
It's not good policy. It goes to one of the most important things that I speak to people about often. Look, agriculture wants to permit water south of Lake Okeechobee. 2018, they permitted about 865 billion gallons of water, about 6 feet of water from Lake Okeechobee for their own uses. Great, take the water, means it doesn't have to go into our coastal estuary here, but the problem is they're hoarding the water, not using all the water for the just in case, and then when the water gets too high, because we get these summertime storms coming in here in wet season, not dry season, we get all of these discharges because they didn't use all the water that they asked for. They hoarded it, didn't use it, rains came in the summer, big surprise, and then we get dumped on. That's poor policy, mismanagement. It's what has to change.
We allow sugarcane fields to be pumped dry into the public system of canals. That overwhelms taxpayer-funded infrastructure, preventing sending water south in wet season. Does this make any sense?
When you think about the infrastructure that was built south of Lake Okeechobee and all surrounding the lake, it's to fix Florida's kidneys that the federal government destroyed. Think about some of those projects, the channelization of the Kissimmee River, the damming up of Lake Okeechobee, the man-made outlets out of Lake Okeechobee, like here into Stewart, here into the Treasure Coast of Florida. These were problems that were created by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. They've created infrastructure to help prevent destroying the Florida Everglades as well. Stormwater treatment areas help convey water south, but make sure it's clean enough that we're not destroying the Everglades. What's the problem? The problem is that those stormwater treatment areas are being filled up with water coming off of the agricultural area, the area south of Lake Okeechobee. Instead of allowing that water to be conveyed from the Kissimmee through Lake Okeechobee into stormwater treatment areas and into the Florida Everglades in the way that it needs to be conveyed to make everybody across the breadth of this watershed whole, instead of just protecting the lands for agriculture south of Lake Okeechobee. That's policy that has to change.
Operations mean priorities, constraints and rules that determine where the water goes and when. Problem is, without the infrastructure in place, everybody can't be served, so they're always picking winners and losers. How would you like to see this changed?
Winners and losers occur on Lake Okeechobee because of where the water levels are. How we change this is saying everybody's health and safety, everybody's priorities need to be taken into consideration. Not just agricultural irrigation, not just municipal water supply, not just navigation across the lake, not just preventing saltwater intrusion, but let's think about the science of the people that have to receive the water off of Lake Okeechobee. Instead of just saying we're going to worry about lake management and the science of the water currently on Lake Okeechobee, that's incredibly narrow-sighted. It doesn't think about all the people on the east and west coast of Florida that are affected by those harmful discharges, even if they're crystal clear, destroying our coastal estuaries, but especially at times when Lake Okeechobee, like in summer of 2018, was 90% covered in algal blooms, the health effects that occur for people downstream. This is what needs to change. And that's what picking winners and losers is all about. You can't make the health of epicenters of population the losers because you want to benefit one industry over all of the people that live in the state of Florida. That can't occur.
The current Lake Okeechobee rules and lures states that the St. Lucie estuary requires beneficial discharges from the lake. Do you agree with this?
Zero discharges is what our coastal estuary needs out of Lake Okeechobee. The number is simple, it's low, it's zero. We don't need a drop of water out of the lake. Every bit of it coming out of the lake is harmful to our coastal estuary here, whether it's crystal clear as something we might drink or whether it's laden with toxic algal blooms. We don't want a drop of it. Zero discharges.
Given the present-day management of Lake Okeechobee and the Everglades ecosystem, it seems like they're picking winners and losers. How can we square that?
We need to stop giving all the risk, all the harm to the estuary communities and share that risk throughout the system. If that risk is shared throughout the system, some of the folks that are opposing restoration right now might get on board.
Operational change and your Stop Harmful Algae legislation are things we can do right now that will help millions of people, strengthen our economy, and ensure that South Florida's rich and biodiverse estuaries will be around for future generations. Can you expand on how we can help?
Every single person in our community can help to stop harmful algal blooms, can help to push Stop Harmful Algal Bloom legislation by holding the government to account. This legislation is all about saying we need to make human health and human safety a priority when managing Florida waters.
What can the general public do to fix this?
Stay engaged. Go to bullsugar.org, sign up for our email updates. Go to the public meetings with the government, ask hard questions, and ask yourself, is your elected official doing everything they can to solve this problem?